Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching Alpar 6373 playing in the Tier 5 Soviet heavy tank. It is the KV-1, and this vehicle is what I recommend to all players who are just starting out, because I think it is the best all-round vehicle to really pick up the not the complete basics of the game, but when you start to think about things like side scraping, when you start to think about being able to have an impact in the game and you're not just driving in and hoping that you manage to penetrate a tank before you go back to the garage to slowly make your way up towards the tiers. And everybody's been there. I've been there. My M3 Lee, I believe, had about a 30% win ratio when I was playing that tank for the first time. And I got to the stage where I almost just rushed in and hoped that my team were going to be able to win, just so I could try and get an M4. Probably one of the first tanks that I wanted to get in the game was the M4. Like the Tiger, I think that's probably quite cliche. Probably a lot of you out there were just like me, starting World of Tanks thinking, oh, what shall I go for? Well, the vehicles that everybody knows about from World War II, right? Tiger, M4, let's go get them. But the KV-1, now us Westerners might not know too much about this vehicle, but boy is it popular in Russia. And I think it is also one of the most played vehicles, if you look at World of Tanks as a global phenomenon, ever, of all time. And the most popular vehicle, I believe, I think the Scorpion G is starting to really put pressure on it, but it is still, I think, the IS-3. But I'll have to go and take a quick look into recent statistics. So why do I think the KV-1 is the best starting tank? Well, obviously not the best starting tank because it's tier 5 and it's going to take you probably a couple of afternoons to be able to get it. But the first vehicle that I would thoroughly recommend that people try and get their hands on and then use it to be able to pick up the slightly above basics, the basic plus of the game. All right, as we're going to see here, Alpan is going to demonstrate quite a lot of it. That's because this vehicle has very well-rounded armor. 75 at the front, 75 at the side, 70 at the rear, and the turret we're talking about 110, 110, 110. Just, it doesn't really matter where you get shot in this vehicle as long as you angle the tank, and that is one of the fundamental basics that not a lot of people get. And the KV-1 will teach you, it will basically allow you to learn side scraping very well, and with a big old slug of 640 hit points, which is way higher than a lot of tier 5 vehicles. If you think about the mediums like the T-34, you're only packing about, 450 hit points in the Soviet tier 5 medium tank. Now that will allow you to survive in the battle, and also it will forgive you for making mistakes. And I think that's what a new player needs. They need to be able to make a few mistakes and maybe not play one of the best tanks, I'd say, at tier 5 like a T-67, which can be immensely rewarding. Oh god, that shell as it flew towards the top right of the T1 heavy turret. That's because the accuracy on the 122mm that Alpan is choosing to use is 0.57. Oh gosh, unless you've got an exceptionally skilled crew, you're not going to do too well with this vehicle like that if you're shooting at mid to long ranges. But there is a plethora of guns that you can choose to use on the KV-1. 3 different guns. There's a 57mm, there's the 85mm, and then there's this 122mm derp. Now I think I would recommend to use the 85mm for most players because you've got a decent alpha. I think it's 160 alpha with 120mm of penetration. That's more than enough to contest all lower tiered vehicles and most of the equal tiered vehicles, and probably quite a lot of tier 6s and even some tier 7s in the front without having to resort to premium rounds. However, if you want to use high explosive rounds, then the derp on this tank, the 122mm, is also fantastic. I don't think it's going to teach you to play the Soviet heavy tanks or even teach you to play medium tanks, as well as if you choose to use the 85mm. I think that'll be the best tool for starting to learn weak points, right? That's one of the keys to the durability on the KV-1. It gives you enough time to start to practice shooting different plates, hopefully finding the flat plates, hopefully finding the weak points on the enemy tanks that you've been learning on websites like TanksGG. But if you use the 122mm, sure, you can put it to great effect and one-shot certain vehicles, and you can do good amounts of damage to heavily armored vehicles as well. It's just not going to quite teach you that the element of trying to find weak points. But nevertheless, Alpar seems to be making it work here. And this is a perfect example of KV-1 durability. Look at this. He's tracked in an awkward position. Still manages to find the back of the Chaffee, though. That sneaky tier 5 American light tank tried to get away there. That Chaffee was on 4 kills. Clearly one of the most experienced players on the enemy team. Yep. But Alpan shuts him down, securing his 5th. and that allows him to secure his 6th on the AMX-40. But did you just see how much damage the KV-1 was able to block? Sure, Alpan is top tier right now, but this is a very interesting moment actually. Where's the Marder gone? Sorry, the Marder's gone because his viewports were actually broken for a split moment there. It's hardly ever that the viewports actually matter in World of Tanks, but that was one of the situations where they do matter. Frequently asked question, do viewports have less view range if they're yellow? No, I think it only matters if they're red, and then you have about 50% less view range, I believe, but I'm not 100% certain. But we could clearly see that Alpan was unable to see a Marder 38T almost right in front of him with damaged viewports. Oh wow, a shot into the Electo doesn't quite manage to penetrate, but it actually sets him on fire. But the T-34, the sole remaining other player on Alpan's team, finishes off the Electo, I believe, with an ammo rack there. Now Alpan takes a look to his right to see what's happening with the T-34. The Marder 38T focusing on the back of the T-34, and Alpan slams one into the side of the Tier 4 German tank destroyer, hopefully giving the T-34 an opportunity to be able to survive. Oh no, the DW2, that Tier 4 German heavy tank, waltzes his way over the ridge and shuts down the higher tier vehicle, leaving Alpan in a 1 versus 5 situation. So this 122mm, it does have some filthy premium rounds as well. I don't feel that most free-to-play players are going to be able to afford to fire them very much, but Alpan, you know, he's taken 5 as long as he doesn't make all the way through, and he bounces them. That's the real way that you lose credits in World of Tanks, is if you're bouncing premium rounds. They can be efficient. You've got less alpha damage, 370 instead of 450, but the penetration does go up. So Alpan pops around the corner and... yeah, that wasn't a heat round, was it? I think that was a high explosive round there, doing 440 damage to the Tier 4 just Japanese heavy tank. But those Japanese heavy tanks, they certainly don't have any kind of armor. They've just got a special amount of hit points, I guess, at 440. But all that allows is Alpan to pretty much just notch on an extra 20 to 25% of his damage done this battle, having secured a Radley Walters. Or is it a Radley Walters? Does it count if it's a Radley Walters against Tier 4 opponents? We're going to have to find out later on in the battle. Goodbye. Is that the Sturmpanzer? No, it can't be a Sturmpanzer. I don't even know. The ST Panzer II? Maybe it is. I think it might be. Possibly. I'm not really too experienced in these low-tier vehicles. Nevertheless, Tier 4 artillery down. That's all that really matters in this scenario. 9 kills now, 2,400 damage, and 2,500 blocked. And that is the key thing that I want you guys to take away from this. Now, I know a lot of you out there will be very experienced players and going, why is QB talking so much about what tank I should play for the first to learn the game, right? But what you can do, what you can take away from this video is a good suggestion for maybe if you've got any friends who are thinking about starting World of Tanks, or if you want to, I don't know, get your boyfriend or your girlfriend into World of Tanks as well, just like I did with Tanya. The first vehicle that I recommend she went for was the KV-1. Of course, I think she had to make her way through the T-28 to be able to get there, which was a bit of a funny tank to have to play, right? But when she got the KV-1, I felt like we could really focus on the fundamentals of World of Tanks and how to start to have that impact in the battle, and to have games like this that only some players can only dream of, right? But Alpan's showing you that with good knowledge of angling your armor, focusing the right target, keeping the thick part of your tank towards your opponents, but then again, that's actually a bit of a moronic statement considering the thick part of the KV-1 is everywhere. It's got 75 at that front, 75 at the side, right, and over 100 on the turret. So as long as you angle the vehicle, you're doing okay. Anyway, Alpan now on 11 kills, 2,800 damage, 1 tank left in it. He's changed his opportunity for a Collar Battles medal into a real good chance here. And all he has to deal with is a Tier 5 Swedish medium tank on the enemy team. Although I believe that Stridsvagn M42 does have a rather high caliber gun. Is it using a 75mm at Tier 5? That's got some decent penetration and decent alpha damage as well. And as you know, the Swedes have got good gun depression. I think the Stridsvagn M42 doesn't quite have as much as its bigger brother, the Stridsvagn 74, which I think is one of my favorite vehicles at tier 6. But still, I think it's got at least 10 degrees and it should be able to work it. I'd be very worried about him being up there in that location, but Alpan is focusing on ahead. He's made his way into the cap circle, and as we can see, it takes 4 minutes and 10 seconds to be able to cap. I guess that's 240 seconds plus 10 seconds. I guess it takes 250 seconds to cap in World of Tanks, but we don't, at least for the encounter, not the standard. But Alpan makes a fatal mistake here. He forgets that he's firing high explosive or high explosive anti-tank rounds, and they will not go through destructible objects. And so the Stridsvagn M42 gets an opportunity to close the distance, but big mistake there by the Stridsvagn. He underestimates, I guess, the big old gun that's on the KV-1, and Alpan shuts him down with a single shot, picking up his 12th kill of the game and 3,300 damage, and the one that everybody wants, the Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against at least 5. So Alpan picks up an ace tanker here for 2,067 base experience points, the Kolobanov's medal, the Pascucci's medal for killing 2 enemy artillery, a Pool's medal. I guess that tier 4 plus vehicles do count if you're trying to contest for a Randy Walters or a Pool's medal for those 12 kills, a high caliber for the 3,327 damage dealt, pretty much 5 times what anyone else on his team was able to achieve, a cool-headed medal for ricocheting at least 10 shells in a row, a steel wall, and let's see what kind of a steel wall this was, 2,575 damage blocked, enough to kill his vehicle 4 times over. And one of my favorite things about this replay is that Alpan is a free-to-play player, doesn't have a premium account, and so there you have it, the KV-1. Alpan demonstrated all of the strengths of the KV-1 that I think make it one of the best starting vehicles in World of Tanks. And Alpan, thank you so much for uploading your replay on the What Replays website for the community to enjoy. I thoroughly did, and hopefully all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments if you agree with my suggestion that the KV-1 is a great starting vehicle for a new player, or maybe you've got a better one. What is it and why? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.